Hello, everyone, and welcome to Life Clarifications with Natasha. And I have a special guest today, Wendy Rose Williams, who is here to help us to get to know a little bit about other perceptions, whatever you want to call it, in the dance of how to navigate through past lives. And she has an interesting story that I quickly read on her website about, near death experiences and things that, we all have these different scenarios. So on this show, Life Clarifications with Natasha, my intention is always to help someone get through life, go through the ways, the triggers, the emotions, the whatever it is for you to do in life. And I know Regan and I talk on Mondays at 4 o'clock Pacific time on, the dance of the soul. So it's more about how our soul works. I kind of like to talk about emotions and stuff like that. But with Wendy on, it's going to be our agenda because of the fact that she has such magic knowledge in her and how she learned things. Because I know for me that, I didn't read a lot of things. I have a bunch of books. I did not pick them up. I would pick them up, read a paragraph, a sentence, because of me being so dyslexic that if a book doesn't hit me, it doesn't hit me. And I can't read it because it doesn't keep my brain engaged. Well, another thing that I also have an understanding, because I was, you said that you studied under a certain person, and I started reading and or listening to him, and I go, I used to watch him on Oprah, but there's so many things that I already knew with my soul that when I read, I went, that kind of thing. So, Wendy, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me as your guest. I appreciate being here, Natasha. So, I am a past life adventure guide. And what I mean by that is I help people release energy that doesn't serve them anymore. Because a lot of us can be just carrying chronic pain, anxiety,
Mhm.
depression, or have stuck creativity, or just be afraid to move forward with that exciting project or really to get on our life path. So that's who I am in a nutshell. And it came as a real surprise later in life because I was doing something else for 30 years.
And what was that? Just for curiosity, because I know a lot of
What
people start one thing and then they go to something else.
Exactly. Well, what I did was I had earned an MBA in marketing by the time I was 22, and I did healthcare business development. So I was working for healthcare systems and working with physicians and working with administration and doing that type of work for my career.
Mhm.
And then things started to really change in 2010 when I was introduced to Journey of Souls by Dr. Michael Newton, and it just really literally rocked my world. It just
As
changed
it
everything
does,
for me.
as it has for a lot of people.
Yes, yes, I hear that title mentioned, and Dr. Brian Weiss's Many Lives, Many
Mhm.
Masters are kind of like the two big ones I hear from so many people as having really changed things for them. And it truly, I know it's an overused term, so my apologies, but reading that book in combination with meeting a soulmate that had the soul contract to wake me up spiritually. And again, soulmate, another overused
And
term.
that's a
What does it
cliche word,
mean?
yeah,
I know, but I met him in the funniest way. So at least that's a little bit different. We met on Match. And who goes on a dating website looking for their primary soulmate, and who goes on there looking to wake up spiritually? Probably no one.
yes, but
But
nowadays it's hard to find anybody if you don't do that, it seems like.
right, right, right. So that was just the path for me. And he was getting ready to go for his second life between lives. He'd had several past life regressions, and he'd had one previous life between lives. And he just generously shared with me what those were like and how life enhancing they were.
Wow.
And just that in combination with having read the book, having read Journey of Souls, it was like, oh my goodness.
Hallelujah.
It was like someone handed me the answer book to the questions I hadn't known to ask.
Yes.
It was just such an epiphany. So it just all came together really, really beautifully. And I then had my first past life regression with a Newton hypnotherapist that my then boyfriend found for me, and he drove me to that session. And it was so incredible what I was able to find and resolve in a short 2 hours. I couldn't believe it. I left there a different person. I was able to leave behind 49, 50 years worth of anxiety was gone. Really not to return,
Yes.
not in the same way, not in the same buzzkill, make me play it small type of
Exactly.
way that had been there before. So it really just opened the doors, so much so that I went for a life between lives a year later. So,
Well,
and things just started to
congratulations.
change.
Well, I know
Thank
for
you.
me, yes, I know for me that working with my past lives has changed my world. Well, and and I've said this on the show before that I am one that I remember being born. So I remember being up in the corner of the hospital room with my soul, looking down at my mom on the hospital gurney with a nurse standing. I mean, this is a memory I've had my whole life.
That
A
is
nurse standing kind of towards her
incredible.
head, like checking her IV and stuff like that, and the doctor standing there. And then all of a sudden, I remember seeing the inside of my mom and then pop out to see the doctor with his white mask. He was a little bit fuller faced. And, it was in the 60s when I was born. So everything was kind of stark in the room. And, doing that, well, that led me, that connection, it was almost like that gave me the quick way to get back to past lives. And so I remember even being young, writing my contract coming into this world.
Wow. You
So
have
I
such unique memories. That's fantastic.
Yeah, so, like, for me, for let's say, for lack of a better word, food, you know, I've been poisoned and fed that I was I remember a mom feeding me, actually, it was my husband now, feeding me, forcibly, so
Mm,
or the poisons was in the food, so I ain't gonna get poisoned this lifetime, and
mhm,
so I've struggled with eating a lot of foods, even, I have to have, food to get even vitamins down because my
mhm,
throat just says, not in this lifetime.
mhm, mhm,
Not in this lifetime." And so, like, if you want me to eat a smoothie,
mhm.
no, because that all has that same poisonish
Hmm.
textures, if that makes sense.
How interesting. Yes.
There's so many
There's a soul
similarities.
memory,
It's
is
a
what I'm
soul
hearing.
memory. It is a total soul memory, and so with
Mhm,
that for me tapping into people's past lives, it I'm right there,
mhm,
and I think the difference between doing it the way that through hypnosis and the way that I do it is that this is your memory when you do it through
mhm,
hypnosis. This is my knowing of your past life.
mhm, mhm,
So I may be able to pop around to different past lives depending on how old your soul is. Where,
mhm,
like for you, when somebody goes in through hypnosis, or that
mhm,
kind of scenario, it's more of a journey. It's a
mhm.
different kind of journey if I can give
Right,
that language, to
right,
clarify.
right. Right, but we're both going to the same place, to Akashic Records, place of all knowledge, that sacred place, and looking for that unique book of life. Would you agree?
Exactly, exactly, exactly. How you do it and how I do it, but
We're
you're
going the
very
same
intuitive.
place.
You're very intuitive yourself. It's just it took you all these years to trust it in a different
Mhm,
way,
mhm,
so that's where, you grab a lot of this knowledge from your
mhm,
intuitive stuff too.
mhm,
So
mhm.
just, whatever works for that journey for that person who feels comfortable.
Right, right. I
Yeah.
really see their higher self and their guides as choosing because there can be just so much in that book. Sometimes I'll ask people, "What does your book look like?" And a lot of them say, "Oh my gosh, it's a tome. It's just so huge." And some will describe these beautiful, like gold edged pages,
Mm.
or that the light just all comes up from it as they open it, or it's already waiting for them open. So I just love hearing their descriptions.
Oh, that is so cool. That is so cool. It is amazing how when we're walking in life and doing our life that, you know, it's amazing how, you know, so much is woven in,
Mhm.
to our journeys, and because I consider
The
past lives.
tapestry.
Yeah, exactly, the tapestry, thank you for that word. That, and my language is kinda simple because of the fact that, we were talking earlier in the show that I didn't really read until after high school, and so for me, my language, I'm actually trusting my language more now that I have somebody to help me proof my reading a little bit more so I can
Mhm.
expand. I'm not this Natasha anymore, I'm this Natasha now, so it's one of those things, but,
That's wonderful.
yeah, thank you for that. That, as we're going in life, that think like even this morning was a past life.
Mhm. Mhm.
So with that,
Yes.
that we hold on to our past lives just like we held on to this morning or 2 days ago
Mhm.
or that kind of thing. And that's one thing that's been amazing for me to practice a lot of these things is that, for me, I stay in the elementary school system because I love to help kids read who are dyslexic to give them
Mhm.
that self-image because there's a lot of people who have poor self-images. And if I can help with that for that
Mhm.
moment, that's
Mhm.
why I'm there, and
That's a big deal.
it is. Well, I had one child who was in kindergarten, and he's was standing next to me, he goes, "I wanna be a girl."
Mhm.
And I'm, like, going, "That doesn't feel right for you."
Mhm.
I didn't say that, and
Mhm.
then I tapped in, "Oh, he was a girl in a past life." But
Oh.
his his way he came into this world being a preemie, being, struggling coming into this world, that his it's taken his soul a little bit longer to get into this reality.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
I'm not necessarily for or against. My youngest is transgender. So for me, I love
Mhm.
whoever it is, but I also check in with that soul and see where does this come from?
Mhm.
Like my
Mhm.
younger, I feel like is a twin soul, and so
Mhm.
has struggled always been, male female. Where
Mhm.
this one, it was like, no, this was from a past life that was so
Mhm.
mirrored right there at that
Right.
time,
So
because
recent, as you said.
he would walk in between dimensions sometimes or
Mhm.
realities a little bit, being young still, not fully in the body yet. So it's interesting when you kinda get these scenarios. That's what I love about working in school because it's like, "Oh, yeah, he was," like, we have one that he's writing a book already, and he's in 2nd grade, and I'm like, "Well, that makes sense because he was a mathematician, he was an artist, he was," he just was this brilliance. His soul has always had brilliance to it, for lack of a better word, so he's just learning how to be in this physical body, you
Mhm.
know?
That's
So
so
it
neat that you can just see those things and support the kids wherever
Mhm,
they are, and it just sounds like you're helping them just normalize so that they feel good about themselves.
mhm. And that's why I'm here. That's my greater picture is to help people feel good about being here, wherever here is.
Right.
So so you've had some interesting dances of around that time you were waking up.
Mhm. Yes,
So
I
would you like
did. It was just such a surprise. It really threw me off to have my belief system just be changing and opening and broadening so much, so quickly, and it really threw off, my family and friends. A lot did
Mhm,
not want to take that ride. Most did not want to take that ride. So a lot of people, left my life, as a result of that, and that was hard. It
mhm,
needed to happen. So, and then the new tribe comes. And then if you go through big changes again, and just keep doing your work, you go through it again. So at least it wasn't as shocking. I'm going through like my
As the
fourth
layers
round of
come.
it now. And I'm like,
Yep.
oh, I know what this is. I don't particularly enjoy it, parts of that, but it's okay. It's just part of the
Evolution.
process, the evolution. Yeah, the evolution can become a revolution at
It
times.
it is, it is, it is. Because I know for me that even though I've been me my whole life, yet I was so shy and quiet when I first met, my whole life, that people wouldn't even know. I went to my first reunion and said, "You were in our class? You were in our school?" Because I was so shut down and quiet. And then my parents passed away, and then I started coming out more, and I started coming forward, and that evolution that I went through, it threw a lot of people off, even though I didn't have a lot of friends, 'cause a lot of us spiritual people don't have a big networking. We have some close friends, but we some of us don't have a lot of friends. We can call maybe one person or two people, and even them, they're like in and out of our lives. For a lot of spiritual people, it's hard to find your tribe when sometimes you're a spiritual person. You
I
know.
think that's been what you're absolutely right, and I think that's one of the silver linings, the hidden gifts of COVID has been that there's so many wonderful spiritual tribes that have gone to free online Zoom meetings.
Yes.
So it's easier than ever, and you can just network and work with people from other areas too, because same thing with my clients. I was originally a traveling hypnotherapist, so I went to
Oh.
people's homes or to their offices, and that worked well in the beginning when it was friends of friends,
Mhm.
their family members, that sort of thing. But things really changed, and my guides told me, would have been, let's see, 2016. They said, "You're going to start using Skype." And I'm like, what Skype? What are they talking about? And I'm
And
like
now you don't
trying to,
even hear about
I'm
Skype
like
anymore.
I'm trying to look it up.
Uh-huh.
Skype being the precursor to Zoom,
Uh-huh.
and I'm trying to look it up. I'm like, what is this? What are they talking about? And it was correct that there was a technology called Skype. And not long after that, I got my first training for past life regression with a wonderful gentleman in the UK, and we did it via Skype. And it just was perfect because that way I could work with clients regardless of where they were.
Mhm.
So it just opened those doors. And same thing, I now really enjoy two or three specific spiritual communities that have monthly meetings or more often via Zoom.
That's neat. That is really neat. I'm excited for you because it's been interesting. Like for me, I live up north here in a very rural area, and yeah, there's not very many people like me. So it is nice to be able to engage with that. And I know for me that my business has grown because of Zoom
Hmm.
and the internet, because we can go different places. Like now that I'm on the radio, I've been getting a lot of clients from the radio because I'm also an animal communicator. So it's like, what hat do I wear at what time? Depends on what
Oh,
work
I
I'm
so
doing.
appreciate animal communicators. I've worked with a lot of animal communicators because I've had such close relationships with my animals, and
Hmm.
they've been involved in my spiritual work. And also, if there's anything that comes up for them health wise or emotionally that I can't
Hmm.
figure out, I so appreciate being able to go to an animal communicator and say, what's going on with this? I just, I need a new insight.
Yes. Well, and two, things tap me. I'm sorry if this squirrel that, because they are your familiars. And
Yes,
that's why there's been many that have popped out at certain times of your life and then a new one will pop in, because it's almost like you needed to go to the next evolution in your growth, and the first one couldn't carry you through because they didn't want to hold you back.
right, Right.
And so that evolution was that step up, and I find that with my animals too, is the way that they're my familiars in a way.
Yes.
That little bit of a word of supporting you and in emotions and how they work because of the different vibration they have at the time that you had them type of thing.
Right, right, I agree, and they can be soulmates too because they can incarnate with us many
Mhm.
times in different forms,
Exactly.
has been my experience, so it's just pretty amazing when you meet again, it's like, "Oh my gosh, I know you." It's
I
just this
know
is like this
you.
you just feel the reunion in your heart, it's just a
Mhm.
big deal.
It is, it really is. It's amazing how they do it. Like I was talking to on the radio the other day when we had one soul of a cat that came through, and this cat has come to this owner 3 times, 3 different times. And this time this cat is coming as a feral cat. So it's gonna take a little longer for this cat to get more in tuned with this owner, even though the soul knows each other. But
Mhm,
the body and the feralness has been pretty loud this
mhm.
lifetime. And so there's a new journey with this whole dance of that one person. It was kind of interesting to get tapped in that way. You know,
Yes,
hmm, yeah, this is the
yes.
same cat. Yet it's not the same cat or the
Right,
same
right,
soul.
right. Different body, different lessons, just
Mhm.
different journey.
Exactly, exactly. So now you had something that a lot of people don't experience or they experience in some way, and that was your near death experience.
Yes. So the near death experience occurred back in 1997. And I was newly pregnant, just over the moon, so happy, 10 weeks pregnant. And we had an 18-month-old, and we'd also had two ectopic pregnancies as well as infertility. So
Oh,
we're just really, really thrilled to be pregnant again. But I was noticing dreams, very odd dreams that I didn't understand. I didn't know about the concept of precognitive dreams at the time.
mhm.
And I kept dreaming. I would see this big storm at sea, and I would see a large ship, and the mast would break off, and all the winches and cleats,
Oh.
everything was ripping and tearing, and
Uh-huh.
the boat would capsize and the boat would go down. And I'm like, what's with these weird pregnancy dreams? I don't get it.
I bet.
So, and I
Wow.
also was experiencing a lot of heartburn. I had called the physicians, the OBGYN office several times and said, I just don't get, I'm only 10 weeks pregnant. I've just got this incredible heartburn. And I was like, okay, you can take my Lanta. That's fine during pregnancy. And I'd had just the one visit and everything was
Mhm.
looking great. But I'm like, why this tremendous heartburn? So I was working at home and I just could not get comfortable that day. My husband's at work. He's got one car. Our nanny's at the park with our daughter. She's got the other car. So I'm home by myself. And I'm trying to focus. I'm trying to work, but just cannot get comfortable. So I like keep going in the bathroom. I try and lay down. And I'm like, what is with this heartburn? It's just like
Mhm.
rising up. And then I felt this sense of impending doom. I have never felt that before, and it was very clear. So I went in the bathroom again. It's like, I'm going to be sick. I don't know what
Mhm.
else to figure out is going on here. And luckily, I had knelt down at the toilet and I passed out on the floor. And I'm glad I had knelt down, versus
Yeah,
falling from standing up.
exactly.
So I think there was already angelic
That we always
intervention
have them.
going on at that point.
Uh-huh.
And I came to only because there was this insistent male voice, and it kept saying, Wendy, Wendy, you've got to wake up. You've got to call for help now, or you're going to go home. And I knew exactly what he meant. I knew
That
he
was
meant I
Michael.
was
That was
you're
Archangel
right.
Michael.
You're exactly right. Yes. So I open my eyes and I'm like laying on the floor of the bathroom, and all I can see is this white light just
Mm.
everywhere. It was
I'm getting chills.
so, and huge angels. I could see three, four, five of them, and they're like eight or nine. I'm like, whoa. And I just want to take it all in. But he's like, you need to call for help now. Stop admiring the angels. And I'm like, okay, but I can't walk.
Uh-huh.
And he answered, all you have to do is be willing to try. If you're willing to try, we can help you.
Mhm.
So I managed to get up on my
'Cause they're
hands
gonna
and
pick you up like
knees.
this.
I got up on my hands and knees, and then it was like being flown to the
Mhm.
telephone, which was not far away. We just had to get from master bath, master bedroom. Phone
Yeah.
is right there on the nightstand. So I get the phone and I'm thinking, okay, he didn't say anything about calling 911. So I'm like, I'm going to call my husband because he works 5 minutes from home.
Yeah.
So let's see if I can get my husband. And miracles continue. I've never reached him at work, but I got him right away. And I give him great credit because all I said was, something's wrong. I need you to drive me to the hospital now. Can you
Uh-huh.
do that? And all he said was, be right there. And I could hear him like throw the phone down. He didn't ask me a single question. And I knew he was,
He was on his
driving.
way.
He's on his way. He's driving home. So I called the OB office at that point and they said, okay, that's great. Your husband's coming to get you immediately. That sounds faster than an ambulance. When you get here, just don't park. Just pull up to the entrance. We're going to meet you with a wheelchair. We don't want you walking. I said, okay, fine. And they did that and whisked me up to the OBGYN office into the ultrasound room. Again, fortunately, it's right at the hospital. So it's
Mhm.
perfect. And they can't visualize anything on the ultrasound. And I looked at the ultrasonographer. I'm like, is that on? Is that machine working? Because I'd had ultrasounds before and I knew you could
Mhm.
visualize. And she had her game face on and she just kind of touched my shoulder and she said, I'm going to go get the doctor now. So I'm looking at my husband and he's looking at me and we're like, oh yeah, there's really something going on here. So the doctor came immediately, midwife came too. So we're now all just like totally overcrowding this little room with five
Uh-huh.
of us in there. And the doctor looks at the screen, tries to adjust it, and he lets me know. He said, there's a severe abdominal bleed. We don't know where it's coming from. We need to admit you on the floors now. And I thought that makes perfect sense because when I was in the bathroom, I had this sense of an organ bursting.
Mhm.
And I was
Was
just
your
hoping.
your artery, I can't say the word.
The
It's the
aorta, it was the fundus at the top of the uterus, which is an aorta. So
that's the
that,
word I was trying to think, kinda trying to say it, the aorta.
the aorta, yes. So we didn't know that at the time. That took several days to figure out. It wasn't until they actually did surgery a few days later that we found out what the source of the bleeding
Mhm.
was. So I'm whisked from the physician's office onto the floors. I'm admitted on the floors. I'm laying flat in bed and I can't get out of bed even to go to the bathroom because there's just such uncontrolled bleeding. And they're
Wow.
trying to call for blood and get blood to transfuse. So they said, do you know your blood type? I'm like, of course, it's A negative. Everyone should know their blood type. And I
I
uh,
don't.
you don't? Oh, really? Oh, I think everyone should know it.
I know, I know, I know. I keep hearing that I probably should, but then I've been told it like 4 times. I
Oh,
can't
interesting. You just don't,
I
it doesn't stick with you. It
it
doesn't
doesn't stick
stick.
with me.
Yeah,
Doesn't
yeah,
stick with me.
yeah, yeah. I
I
get
don't
it.
know.
I get it. The
Go ahead,
receptor's
I'm
not
sorry for
there.
interrupting. Yeah, I'm
No,
sorry
no
for interrupting.
problem.
Keep going.
So the nurse is calling, trying to get blood, and they let me know that there's going to be a delay because they can't find any. And I'm like, oh my goodness, we've got a central blood bank. I'm a hospital person.
Uh-huh.
So it's like I kind of like know
You
some
know
of
the
these,
backstory.
the backstory, and I'm thinking, oh, that's really concerning. That's odd because it's a regional blood bank. It's
Mhm.
Puget Sound Blood Bank. Each hospital doesn't have their own blood supply because it would be very wasteful. So what she found out was there had been a major train collision a few days before, and it had used up. Plus, it was the middle of summer, and blood
Uh-huh.
supplies are the
Going
lowest
down.
in the summer. Because we don't have all the wonderful students in high school and college donating, because they're a big source of blood donations.
Yeah,
So
that would make
anyway,
sense. Mhm.
there's this delay to get blood available. And the doctors are discussing, well, we may need to do surgery. And I'm resisting at this point. I'm like, what are you doing surgery on? What are you doing surgery for? I'm pregnant and we don't have blood. And they're like, yeah, you're right, Wendy. All those things are true, but we have to figure out what's best for you at this point. So they were able to start transfusing blood about 6 hours later.
Mm-hmm.
And I just was going through bag after bag after bag, and they're taking my hematocrit. And I guess it was about the third day, my physician said to me, Wendy, you're bleeding out. I said, I know. He's like, we need to do surgery at this point, to save your life. It's like, and I was those 3 days waiting and like trying to heal it myself, trying to just neutralize whatever
Mm-hmm.
was going on. What concerned me was I was drifting in and out of consciousness. I was detaching from the body.
Mm-hmm.
What concerned me the most was I didn't really care.
Aha.
So I can feel myself starting to,
To
you know,
detach.
detach and pass over, and it's going to be peaceful, and it's going to be lovely to not be in pain anymore. So the night before, so I agree. Yes, we've got to do surgery. So it's planned for the next morning. It's going to be 2 OBGYN physicians because we thought that was the best thing to do because we didn't know general surgeon, vascular surgeon. We still don't know what we do. And they said, well, you're a pregnant woman. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
2 OBGYNs, let's go for it. And they were going to have imaging during the pregnancy and do their very best to stay away from this little tiny
Yes.
fetus, 10 weeks. But they said they would be visualizing, because I said, I really want to keep this pregnancy. You know how hard I have worked for this pregnancy. And I think, you know, I just sense this really special soul. They're like, absolutely, we're going to do everything we can to preserve the pregnancy. So the night before the surgery, I have dinner and I'm just trying to relax because I am just beyond exhausted. I feel flatter than a flat bunny that got run over. I just have nothing left.
People
And
people don't realize that when your blood is off, when your blood supply is off, it's like being drained.
correct. It's a car with no gasoline,
Gasoline.
no oil, no
Mm-mm.
lubricants.
Exactly.
It's a car with nothing in it. It's
And
very,
that's
very
the
hard to
same way as
function.
people who, the lack of iron, or when the oxygen and all the red and white blood cells are off. It's a major.
Yes, exactly. So I tried to just relax. I'm trying to visualize a great outcome the next day in the
Mhm.
surgery. The moment I visualize a great outcome, I pop right out of my body and I leave my body. And I see all this light above me in the hospital room ceiling. So I'm like, oh my gosh, look at that. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to get up there. This is like the most excited I've been. And I look back over my shoulder. I look back at my body in the bed and I'm like, she's fine, whatever. And again, I'm referring to myself in the third person. And
Mhm.
I'm like, that caught my attention too. And I'm like, okay, if I'm calling Wendy she, who am I? I'm like, oh wow, I'm my soul. I'm my whole soul self. This feels fantastic. I'm going up to the light. So I went out of the building and I'm up above the hospital building and I'm looking around. And then I had this funny thought. I'm like, please don't make me walk through that long tunnel. I didn't know a lot about NDEs, but I think that's kind of worked its way into our cultural awareness, as
It
many
is, it
people
is.
talk
The
about going
long
through a
tunnel. It's
tunnel.
amazing what we believe because of what we've been told.
Yes. So I'm like, please don't make me walk through that long tunnel. I'm too tired. I can't make it. And the minute I thought that, this beautiful escalator, this pristine escalator with all this light coming off it came in. And I'm like, oh, thank you. So I plop myself on the escalator, and now I just have the ride, and I get the
Uh-huh.
ride up and up and up. And the minute I get to the top of the escalator, there's this welcoming committee for me that is so fantastic. So Archangel Michael is there. The
He's a
other
busy
angels
man.
are there.
He's a
He's an
busy being. He's a
incredibly,
busy
his ability to be everywhere,
where
helping
and anywhere.
everyone is just incredible. My grandparents are there, and I knew all four grandparents, which I also thought was amazing because my maternal grandparents, my mom's parents, I knew well, but I'd never met my dad's parents because they
Mm,
died before I was born. But
but you
yet I
knew
knew
them.
them the minute
Yeah.
I was up there, and there were just other family members
It's
and
the
just
soul families.
soul family, and they're all hugging me, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, this is like the best welcome home ever. And Archangel Michael again was the spokesperson, and he said, Wendy, we're so glad you're home. You've done nothing wrong. You're absolutely welcome to stay. You have a choice, but you're going to need to decide quickly, because I'm trying to like look over everyone's shoulders. I'm
Hmm.
trying to like surge forward to get more at home, and they're
Yes,
holding me back. They're stopping me. They're saying,
because
you
they
need
know
to
the story.
listen.
They know the story.
Right, right. They're like, you need to pay attention. We need to tell you a few things. So I settled down. I'm like, okay, what can you tell me? And they said, if you choose to go back, you will have a successful surgery tomorrow. You will recover from it completely. You will regain your health, and your baby will be born healthy. So these were two huge things to know that really
Yeah.
filtered into my choice of what was I going to do. And then the other thing they said was, we also want you to know, if you choose to go back, life is going to be very difficult, likely for many years, because you are not on your life path. So that really concerned me. Yes, I looked just like you do right now.
Wow.
I'm like, oh no, I'm not on my life path. What am I doing wrong? What am I not doing? I'm so sorry. What should I be doing? So I start asking them like every question in the book, and they're just like shaking their heads. And I'm like, oh boy. And so I thought, okay, the angels can't tell me. They're not supposed to tell me. So I'm like looking at my ancestors. I'm looking at other people. I'm like, who's going to tell me? Someone's got to
It's
give
called
here.
self-choice. That is the part of our personal choice that they could not
Yes.
tell us.
Yes, yes. Because I think it would have interfered with my free will. I wouldn't have accomplished what I needed to accomplish.
Mhm.
So to lighten the moment, because I'm kind of frustrated. I'm like, oh my gosh, they've told me life's going to be really hard and I'm not on my path, but now they won't tell me my path. I don't get it. So they start putting like duct tape over their mouths, and they start like locking with a key, and like throwing the key. And I'm like, okay, I get it. I need to just lighten up because you guys are
Just lighten up.
hysterical.
That's the whole theme about life is just lighten up a little
Exactly.
bit. Walk it, lighten up a
Exactly.
little bit. Mhm.
Lighten up. So Michael said, what do you want to do? And the minute he said that, all I could see was my toddler's adorable face. And I said, I'm going back. And they said, wonderful. And they gave me a second huge hug. And the second time they hugged me, the first time, all I could feel was the relief and the joy of unconditional love. It was overwhelming because
People
we don't
don't know what
feel
love
that.
is. People do
Not
not
unconditional love.
no, they don't. They don't
Love,
know. I mean,
even
it's
in
just
romantic relationships, even with parents, even
yeah.
with those we're closest with,
Oh,
so
what a
many
gift you have to
times
know what that is.
it's conditional. It's conditional.
Yeah,
So to
everything on
feel
this
that unconditional love
unconditional.
the first time, and the second time I got that group hug, what I could feel was this download of energy. And I don't believe I would have survived the surgery otherwise. I think
Mhm.
I was just too, I think
Well,
I
your
was too
soul was
depleted.
drained. Yeah,
My
your
soul was absolutely drained. It was absolutely
mhm.
drained. So I just accepted it. And I was like, thank you for this gift. And everyone's like, you can do it. And they like turn into cheerleaders and spin me around and put me back down on the escalator. And I'm like looking over my shoulder and everybody's like waving and jumping up and down. They're like, you can do it. You can do it. You know, you'll figure it out. You can do it. You know, go back and get in there.
Mhm. Well, and actually what they were doing at that time too is that this is an understanding I have is that we all have these threads that go from our physical body to, I'm going to call it the heavens, whatever, because to me heaven is right here too. But it's that thread, and when we start to pass, that thread gets really thin, and it gets thinner and thinner and thinner. And so what they were doing actually was filling your soul back up with energy, with light, because it
Yes.
became very dull. The light became very
Yes.
dull. But they
Yes.
also were threading your power back in. They were bringing the electricity of light, the energy, because to me, like Reiki it's energy.
Life force energy.
It's life force energy. So they were bringing that life force energy back in to thread it back into your physical body. So your soul
That's
would be attached to your physical body again,
that's
because
a
otherwise you would not have been walking around grounded in this lifetime. You would have been more aloof, or more detached. You would always be kind of like, until somebody was able to help you bring that soul back
That's
into.
very, very perceptive because that has been a huge issue. And that's been the work of the last 10 or 11 years, is to really, really ground and to seat and to not have that detachment and to not be doing spiritual bypass
Mhm.
where I'm at home and, you know, connected up in the upper chakras and above,
Mhm.
but to really be here now. So they gave me that gift, and I then did have the successful surgery the next day. And they were also correct. I call it the preview of coming attractions. I didn't get the past life review because I didn't need one. I
Mhm.
needed to know what was coming and to make the choice. And I felt so honored that it was a choice, because as I learned about near death experiences 20 years later, I just hear so many people say they feel that they were pushed back into their body, or just not given a choice. They don't feel they were given a respectful choice. They're just told it's not your time, get back in there, and you
Mhm.
know that they were kind of like swatted back in. And I didn't have that experience at all.
Well, I think
Um,
too that some people, if they looked at the reason why that happened, that swatting back, was that probably they were ones either couldn't make choices
mhm.
or did not want to go back.
Wouldn't have made the choice that
Wouldn't
was
have made the
for their
choice, and
highest and
they
holiest.
knew that they
Yes,
had to go back.
yes,
They
yes,
had to go back, and so
yes.
with that it wasn't necessarily wrong or right what they did, but
Mhm,
people forget that our souls have personalities, our
mhm,
humanness has personalities,
mhm,
and then you have your mind's personality. So
mhm.
there's a lot of personalities that we work with, and emotions and things that go on,
They don't
that,
always line up.
and they don't always line up. And so when the universe knows the greater picture for us, sometimes they have to make the split decision. And I bet you, if they look at how they were doing their near death experience, it was a second in time that they had to make that choice.
Yes,
It
yes,
was a second in time.
yes, because
It's
it's
kind of
very
like,
quick, because the body's not viable for a long time. I was completely gone from my body. It would
mhm,
have been very easy to stay home. It would have been easier to stay home and to have just, you know, passed on, and they would have found me, you know, the next
exactly,
morning or
exactly,
whenever
because
they checked on me the next time. So I did have that successful surgery. I was so grateful to the great care that I received medically and from the hospital and from everyone involved. I went home, and it was 6 weeks of essentially bed rest
mhm.
at home, because I went home quite a few quarts low. They had not been able to
Yeah.
transfuse. They estimated
And
I lost 75% of my blood.
wow.
So, I mean, obviously some was being transfused, but I had to go home and really, really
And your body
recover.
has to remake its own to in order to claim its own.
Absolutely. And I am pregnant.
Mhm.
So there's just a lot going on. So I've got a medical leave from work and I do recover. I go back to work. I think I went part-time the first week and then I went back to full-time the second week. I'm back at work for about 6 weeks. Job I love. I've been there for 3 years. Great performance reviews. Everything is like,
Mhm.
yay, got through that really really hard patch, and I'm so glad to be back here and just be looking forward to healthy pregnancy and the baby. And I'm only back at work about 6 weeks, and I get called into my boss's office on a Friday afternoon. I don't think a thing about it. I love my boss, great relationship. And the minute I walk into his office and I see human resources sitting with him and I read their faces and I read their energy, I'm like, oh, brother. So I get laid off
Yep, there's your
and
journey.
and that takes down the health insurance for the whole family because we
Mhm.
had it through me. So I now have no job, no health insurance. Did I mention I'm pregnant?
Mhm.
Only about 10 times. So that was very difficult. So I go home, tell my husband, we've got a full-time live-in nanny who thankfully was there because just medically we so needed
Mhm.
her, and for just moral support. I'm so glad she was there, but it's a big expense. And she's on a contract. We've just purchased a house. We've just purchased a
Oh
minivan,
my.
expecting the second child. And I'm thinking, okay, so I need to get looking for a job, file for unemployment. So I'm doing all that. And 1 week to the day, my husband comes home, and he was a partner. There were 5 partners in what had been a successful software company. They employed about 100 people. And he comes home from work very late that Friday night. And the minute he walks in the door, I looked at him. I said, oh my gosh, are you okay? He looked like someone had died.
Oh
And
wow. Well,
I
basically it had.
it had. His company had died.
Mhm.
And particularly when it's your own company, it
Yes.
was such a loss. And he said, I have something really hard to tell you. Sit down. We need to talk. And he said, I've just gone to payless paydays. And I'm looking at, my brain is going, payless payday, payless, does not compute. I'm like, what's a payless payday? That those two words don't go together. And he explained that they had had some severe business setbacks and he would be continuing to work because he had to complete the contracts. They'd laid off almost everyone in the company, but he had to still work there full time to try and see when they could end the lease, see what they could
Mhm.
sell. I mean, there were just so
Close
many
things
things
out.
to do
Mhm.
to close down. And he was also going to be having to fulfill contracts and be doing coding and programming and things that he didn't normally do because of contracts that had been sold. And I'm looking at him going, wow. So you're going to do all that for what time period? He can't tell me. I'm like, okay, well, at least get your file for unemployment. He's like, oh, I don't qualify for unemployment. I'm self-employed. We had made the decision as a company not
Put
to
in.
carry it. We made that decision. So more and more of this language is coming out of, I'm like, I
Payless paydays.
don't feel at the table with you. And he's like, well, you're not part of my company. I'm like, well, am I not your wife? Are we not the company together? We have a home, we
Mhm.
have a family, we're growing our family. So this was really divisive for the two of us. And it just showed me a lot of really difficult truths I hadn't really appreciated.
Mm.
And it just was, showing us growing apart in some pretty hard ways. So he won't agree to look for a job. I'm looking for a job, not having success. It was just a very very difficult time period. So I'm doing things to financially try and cut expenses. I'm trying to renegotiate our new mortgage. I'm trying to renegotiate payments on our van. And we're getting into a really, really tough place where
Yeah, I can
our
imagine.
home is potentially going
And
to be repossessed.
uh-huh,
Our van is
what
going to
was
be
these
taken.
years? These were like 97,
This
98.
was this was the recession of fall of 1997. And the joke is it's a recession when your neighbor's unemployed. It's a depression when you're unemployed.
Exactly,
We'll
exactly.
try
I
it
was
with
just
both
thinking
of you.
I
Try
was
it
just
with both of
yeah,
us.
no, I was just thinking that because about the same time, my kid who was born in July of 97, 3 weeks after she was born, I found out my mom had Lou Gehrig's disease.
Oh my
So I went
goodness.
into my year of depression, recession. My husband changed a job, uh, sold 2 houses, bought or 3 houses, bought 1. We it's like I had a 4-year-old, had and then moved my mom out of a house of 60 years,
Yeah,
you
very
know?
challenging.
Very challenging. So it's kind of funny how about that same time, a lot of us had challenges. The
Well,
stars and the planets had
I was
something
going
up
to
and
say there's astrology going on, and or people are in their Saturn returns. It didn't happen to
mhm.
be my Saturn return, but there's definitely planetary astrology.
Exactly, Oh, I believe in it wholeheartedly. I believe in it wholeheartedly. I do. So to kind of because we're kind of coming up, this hour goes by fast when you have great stories and great conversations going on. So with that your relationship made it, didn't make it, or
So what happened was we were fortunate. We were bailed out by Bank of Mom. My mother was able to loan us the money to keep our home and keep our van until we both got employed. So the minute my daughter was born, brought her home. I'm home with this newborn, and I looked down at her, and I was so relieved because of what I had gone through with the
mhm.
pregnancy, and we were just so overjoyed. But I heard. I think it was Michael again, just clear as day, saying, "Your contract with your husband is now complete." And I'm like, "What?"
Wow.
I'm holding a day-old baby here and have a 2-year-old. What do you mean my contract with my husband is complete? So I found our contract later, when I had woken up spiritually, and our contract was to have a long-term marriage that we would both really grow through. We were married for 15 years, we were together for 18, and to have beautiful children together, plural, children. There's the second baby.
Uh-huh.
So the contract was complete. So we divorced when our children were 6 and 8. I tried to ignore. I tried to ignore. I tried
Lots of
to, it's
ruck
like,
with that one, right? Lots
no,
of ruck
nope,
with that
nope.
one.
I know, I know. You can't. You
You
can't.
can't. You
You
can't
can't.
when the universe says this is what is this is the lines on your hand needing to do.
Correct.
You really
Correct.
you can't make new lines. You can't
Correct.
make new lines. I'm
Correct.
sorry.
Correct.
Otherwise, I would still be a shy, quiet person.
So we divorced. We did it peacefully. We did it well. We co-parented really well on a 50-50 schedule. It takes a lot of
It does.
respect and cooperation. My mother relocated here from out of state, and she became the safe grandma, neutral territory. She would help me if I needed help. She'd help my husband if he needed help with the kids.
Mhm.
So it just was so, so
What a
appreciated.
blessing.
It was such a blessing. It really was grandma to the rescue. And she loved it because she was newly retired. I'm the only child, it's the only grandchildren, and she'd always worked full time. So she got to do a lot of fun things with my kids that she didn't get to do
Get to
with
do with
me.
you. Mhm.
So I think she really loved it. She and I built a duplex together, lived next door to one another, and
Oh.
that was just such an important part of it too. And then about 6 years after the divorce, I was finally like, okay, I've rebuilt my life. Life is going fantastic. The girls are doing great. They were 12 and 14. That's when I decided to go on Match. That's when I woke up spiritually and everything started to kick into a very different higher gear. And I started to figure out what that NDE was about because
Mhm.
I hadn't known how to unpack it. I didn't know
Mhm.
how to process it. And that's very common is people don't talk about them unless they can find something like IANDS, International Association of Near-Death Studies, with like a local chapter, or find information online, because it's gotten really good now. You can find great information to
Mhm.
support either for yourself or to support a loved one who's had an NDE. But that I didn't know about it. I
Yeah.
didn't tap into any of it.
Well, and too, for me being an intuitive medium, psychic medium, not every medium and not every intuitive would understand that process.
Hmm.
Not everyone would understand that process. And I think that's why I remember being born. It
Hmm.
gives me that soul journey coming, that thread being rewoven into and into a body.
Hmm.
And, if I can give you a mantra that whenever you find something new, like something you have those aha moments of reawakenings, say, I'm coming home.
Yes,
I'm coming
that's
home, and
beautiful.
hugging your body. I'm coming home because, a lot of people think that home is everywhere else.
Right, right.
At
But it
home is
really is here in our
here.
heart. And that
Exactly.
also helps us balance the masculine and the feminine.
Feminine. Mhm.
And it just gets us center brained rather than being caught, over in our left brain or only in our
Yes.
right brain. It
And I call
just,
that being righted. It's like a ship being righted. It gets
yes,
us righted. It gets our ships
that's
balanced so we
powerful.
can be
That's lovely.
uprighted. And so with that giving that I'm coming home, I feel like that kind of mantra would actually start connecting more pieces of the puzzle here with your soul that's here. Does that make
Yes,
sense?
it does. I think that can lead into us doing those soul retrievals of
Mhm.
ourself. Yes, that's beautiful. I so love your insights.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm grateful. Well, it's as people always said. Like I had somebody who was working on me. They go, "Well, your guide is telling no, that's you. That's your higher. That's you. That's telling you what to do. Instead of guides.
Our own
So
higher self can be our guide.
oh,
Yes.
it is, it is, it is, and but they're always like, that's you. It's because it's so defined for me. It's so defined for me.
That's
Um,
wonderful.
yeah, thank you, thank you, thank you. So with we're coming up. I can't believe it. It's 58. I want you back because
I'd love to come back.
we have to talk about maybe. Are you free next week?
Yes, we'll compare schedules.
Okay, so because I would like to, because there's something about your awakening that I think that people can
We'll
hear, because I
unpack
know
more.
that there's some people that are kind of in this crossroads of waking up, and I understand the waking up of my physical body, but my soul has always been awake. So so we got a check, the thumbs up. Let's do that if it can work. But let's kind of do stage two, with your waking up, if
I
this.
was super stubborn. I didn't start to wake up till I was 49 and woke up kicking and screaming. So we had very different experiences. Like, nope, you can't make me.
I love it, I love it. Yeah, because that's one of those things. It took my parents passing away, because
Mm,
all my family passed away. My dad passed away, 93. Son was born 93. 97, my next kid. My mom passed away a year later, and then my uncle. I'm an only child, only grandchild. Same story there. And then 3 years later, my uncle passed away, and I had to take care of
mm,
him. So with that I had multiple huge moments where
mhm.
things were happening, and
That's
if my
quite a
cousin
ride.
Kathy is watching today, she's one that without her family, I would not have made it
Oh,
through a lot of that. So with that we all go through our own personal awakenings, and it's never too late.
No, it's
It's
not.
never
And
too
it
late.
just came at the perfect time for me. It came in the perfect way, but it took some years of perspective to see that.
And now your girls are probably going, "Mom, thank you for walking that path because you gave me tools for my future."
Right, right. Yes, I hope that's true. Yeah, one's finishing up vet school and the other one's finishing her engineering degree. So they
Oh,
just launched
congratulations.
beautifully, and the older one is happily married, and I adore my son-in-law, so life is good.
Oh, good, 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 good. Oh, good. Well, we're at the last hour, and I know this is one of those moments where people need to get going with their day, and I want to honor that time. So, how do people get a hold of you for any of the work you do?
Yes, so please go to my website, which is my full name, wendyrosewilliams.com, and you're welcome to request a complimentary 15-minute phone appointment from the website and see how I may be of service to you. And you also can find me via my podcast, which is wakingupspiritually.com. And all of the podcasts are archived there, as well as on YouTube and the podcast apps. And we do it as a PowerPoint presentation. So it's a visual podcast, my co-host Greg Kirk and I. So
Mhm.
there's something fun to look at besides the two of us chatting.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you, Wendy, for coming. And you can if
You.
anybody's interested in anything we've talked about today, that you can reach me at angelicclarifications.com. I love to support people, and if you've noticed in the show, it's real easy for me to slip in and out just these little dances that I do. And I would love to support people in knowing a deeper part of themselves, a deeper part of themselves, because this is the time to wake up. This is the time to get to know that we are not alone, because I know Archangel Michael in his cowboy boots and his and his shorts is standing there going, "Come on, guys. We know we
Right,
can do it."
right, right,
It's one of those things because he's one that he uses, like he's told me before, "My dear, you've asked me not to kick you to get you moving," because he will kick us in our hindy ends to get us
right,
moving with his
right.
cowboy boots.
Right. That's the sudden job loss, that's the marriage suddenly ending, that's the car collision, that's the disease. If we're not getting on the path and getting on with what we should be doing, there will be those rough rides.
There will be, because those are no
Shake
mistakes.
you to wake you.
Shake you to wake you, exactly, because I call those, like we have a no mistake, and then we make a decision, and there's no mistake here, and there's no mistake if we make this other decision, and then it's like these dots to dots, but they're gonna at some point say, uh, where are you gonna learn? Where are you gonna learn? Well, thank you, Wendy, for
Thank
coming. And
you.
anybody who's listening, we have not caught, I threw that at her about coming next week. So I apologize for you, Wendy, to do that. But there's a possibility. So if you want to reach me, or let me restart that again, please. So you can see me or Regan on Mondays at 4 o'clock Pacific time on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. And on Wednesdays with Life Clarifications with Natasha, you can watch me at 4 o'clock Pacific time on the same time stations and everything. And if you are watching this for the first time and you like what you see, please subscribe, because I would love for you to know more about how you can be stronger. So, blessings, everyone. Thank you, Wendy, for coming. And
Thank
please stay
you.
on for a second here. And I want everyone to know that no matter where you're at, that you are so loved. You are so loved. You are so loved. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.